In the next presentation, we will present some of the achievements, some of the work we have done in these various bodies, various projects of the Arctic Council. And co-authors on these presentations are Phil, Alf Håkon, and Joel Clement from the US Department of the Interior. And I'll start with a definition for the ecosystem approach to management, or ecosystem-based management. Now, this is a result from that expert group on EBM in the Arctic, and it has been adopted by ministers as an official definition of what we mean. And I have, with colors, sort of shown that this consists of 4 parts. The first part is that it is the comprehensive integrated management of human activities. So that is what we mean with ecosystem approach to management, means comprehensive integrated management of human activities. And if we go to the last part of the definition, we have the purpose, which is to achieve sustainable use of ecosystem goods and services and maintenance of ecosystem integrity. Now, as scientists, we know that defining what is sustainable use and defining what is integrity of an ecosystem is challenging, and we know that that takes the best available scientific and traditional knowledge about the ecosystem and dynamics, which is then in this definition. And the third part is then we need to identify and take action on influences which are critical to the health of the marine ecosystems. So the definition is fairly clear in my view. We speak about integrated management of human activities across sectors with the aim to maintain the ecosystem in good conditions. That's the short version. So I think with this definition we know what we mean with the ecosystem approach to management. But going then to the next step, how do we implement? That is the next step and the next issue. I'd just like to stress that we see ecosystem approach to management and ecosystem-based management as synonymous terms. They are not different in any way. They mean exactly the same thing. They mean what we had in that definition. And also enocosystems-based approach to management, as we saw the ministers were using in the Iqaluit Declaration, means the same. We are seeing that ecosystem approach are also used in other contexts, such as ecosystem approach to fisheries. And I think a recommendation could be that whenever possible we should replace ecosystem approach to ecosystem considerations in fisheries or in fisheries management and in other contexts, and reserving the use for that overarching what we mean integrated management of human activities across sectors. Going then to some of the achievements, some of the work, I've listed here 4 processes or products. The first is a project, the BePOMAr project on best practices in ecosystem-based oceans management. It was run under the Norwegian chairmanship in 2007-2009, and the project was led by Alf Håkon. The second is the ecosystem group on ecosystem-based management, which was run under the Swedish chairmanship 2011-2013, and Joel Clement was one of the key persons involved in that. Then I will say something about the Arctic Ocean Review, which went over 4 years in two phases, which was a review of legal instruments, review of issues, looking then into what do we have and what do we need for the future. And then we have our ecosystem approach expert group, which was established in 2007 by Hein, and which was broadened as a joint group in 2011 with also participation of AMAC, CAF and SDWG together with PAIM since then. I have listed here the core elements from the BePOMAr project. So reviewing national status on implementation of the ecosystem approach, the BePOMAr project identified then these 8 core elements, which I thought was sort of fundamentals of ecosystem approach. And I will not read them out, but I think the keywords here make very much sense. They emphasize the geographical scope of ecosystems defined by ecological criteria. They emphasize the scientific understanding and the use of the best available scientific and other knowledge. They stressed that this was an integrated and multidisciplinary approach to management, that it was area-based management, and that assessment of cumulative impact was central, that it provides a comprehensive framework, and that transboundary arrangements need to be addressed as appropriate. The BePOMAr project also provided 5 conclusions that there needed to be a flexible application suited to the specific conditions in specific areas or ecosystems, that the decision making must be integrated and science-based, that national commitment is required, that area-based approaches and transboundary perspectives are necessary, and that stakeholder and Arctic resident participation is a key element. And again, these 5 conclusions make very much sense and are a basis for follow-up work. So the expert group on ecosystem-based management, the high-level group, made also a number of recommendations, and I already showed the definition which they recommended. They also have a recommendation of a policy commitment to apply the ecosystem approach to management, which the ministers agreed to. They provided 9 principles for the ecosystem approach to management, and in that there are 2 annexes to the report where they are reviewing definitions and principles as a basis for their choice and their recommendation. So that might be a useful sort of background information. Then they provided a number of recommendations for activities to be undertaken under 4 headings: policy and implementation, institutional, and science and information. I have not listed these recommendations. I think Phil in his presentation next will at least address some of the follow-up from that. And these recommendation was endorsed by the ministers at the Kiruna meeting in 2013. The Arctic Ocean Review has a chapter on ecosystem-based management or ecosystem approach, and there are 2 recommendations. One is that the Arctic state should recognize the importance of a framework with 6 elements when they go about implementing the ecosystem approach. And I'll show in a while what these 6 elements are and that framework which we have developed in this ecosystem approach expert group. The second recommendation is that the Arctic Council should promote a common understanding and the mutual exchange of lessons learned by periodically convening Arctic Council-wide meetings on EBM to share knowledge and experiences with respect to management as science across large marine ecosystems for the marine part of the Arctic, and review information on integrated assessments. So this meeting here is sort of one step in following up that recommendation. We want to review information and share experiences and from ongoing work by implementing the ecosystem approach. So then on to the ecosystem approach expert groups. We have over the last 5 years held 5 workshops, and we are preparing regularly progress reports on the work to the PAIM working group. And these workshop reports and progress reports are available at the BePOMAr webpage. And I think we have had two main achievements. One is a development of this EA framework for implementation, and the other is a division of the Arctic marine area into now 18 large marine ecosystems. The 5 workshops started with the first in Tromsø, Norway in 2011, where we focused on the LME boundaries as part of the review process for an LME map. The second was in Stockholm, where we considered the concept of EA, we considered scale issues, and the role of integrated ecosystem assessment for the ecosystem approach. Then in Reykjavik at Iceland, we focused on data issues. In Vancouver, the year after, we focused on integrated ecosystem assessments with 2 examples, the Beaufort Sea and the Barents Sea. And then last year in my hometown, Bergen, we focused on ecological objectives. So reports from all of these workshops are available. Now the EA framework with the 6 elements are to define the ecosystem as a first step. The ecosystem approach is to consider the status of the ecosystem, and in order to do that and take into account the dynamics of the ecosystem, the status of the ecosystem, we need to define the ecosystem in geographical terms. The second step is to describe the ecosystem, and we have bookshelves of information in papers and books about these various ecosystems, but it is important to sort of focus on what are the key defining characteristics of each of these large marine ecosystems in the Arctic, which have a lot of things in common, but also their own specific things. And we need to set ecological objectives for which state we want the ecosystem to be in. We need to assess the state, and integrated ecosystem assessment is one important aspect of that. We have the valuation of the ecosystem, both in terms of economic monetary values, but also other non-monetary values, cultural, social, and other values. And then the final step is to manage the human activities in an adaptive manner. I'll skip this now and go to the large marine ecosystems. As I said, we have now divided the Arctic marine area into a division of 18 large marine ecosystems. And you should note that the Arctic marine area, as we are using it in the Arctic Council, extends south to about 60 degrees north, including Faroe Isles and the waters around Iceland in the North Atlantic, and including the Aleutian Islands south of 60 degrees north in the Pacific. So we are talking about a very wide area, and this area includes boreal, subarctic, and Arctic environment. So there is a wide span in conditions. We can also see a broad division of this area into the southern part, open water, boreal and subarctic areas with major commercial fisheries. And one side effect of that is that we have a lot of data collection to provide information to manage fisheries. And then we have the ice-covered waters, where we have subsistence harvest in some area, and we have a stronger focus on conservation issues now related to the loss of sea ice and climate change. But this variety of conditions is important to sort of remember. The Arctic LMEs, the 18, we can broadly divide into 3 categories in terms of geopolitics. Some of them reside within the area of national jurisdiction of only one country, and Hudson Bay LME in Canada and the Laptev Sea LME in Russia are examples, and probably the only cases. Many of them spans the EEZs of 2 or more countries, so they are transboundary. The northern Bering Chukchi Sea LME between Russia and the US, Beaufort Sea LME between Canada and the US, the Canadian Eastern Arctic West Greenland LME between Canada and Denmark, Greenland, the Barents Sea LME between Norway and Russia. And then we have several, which includes high seas, international waters, such as the Barents Sea, East Bering Sea, Norwegian Sea LMEs, and the Central Arctic Ocean. So I'll end with this, but showing you the map of the Central Arctic Ocean LME with the boundaries in red, and emphasizing that these boundaries do not follow the political boundaries. They include areas of national jurisdiction, north of Canada, north of Greenland, north of Svalbard, and north of Russia, which where the EEZs extend out into the basins of the Central Arctic Ocean. And then, like the Northern Bering Chukchi Sea LME extends out into the high seas water in the Chukchi area, as does the Beaufort Sea. So one aspect of the work on the following up is sort of what role could the work of the Arctic Council be relating to the Central Arctic Ocean. And with that, I will end my presentations, and the third and final presentation in this will be by Phil Bundy.